Welcome to the channel, welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, you know what to do. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. So we're going to kick off with, the giddiness that still surrounds the Carlos Baleba news. Been some interesting updates. They're like updates, but non-updates as well, in my opinion. But we'll go through them because I think there's been some interesting things said. So first of all, Ben Jacobs on a podcast that he was doing with Fabrizio Romano on Gimme Sport had some really interesting things to say regarding the deal. So firstly, he said, Manchester United are actively exploring a deal for Carlos Baleba via intermediaries, and personal terms are now not thought to be a problem. So they've not just made outreach to the player side, they're actually talking numbers. Now, when you start hearing that we're discussing the salary costs and the add-ons or bonuses or whatever with a player, then that's always a positive sign for me normally in a transfer. Obviously, the problem with the Baleba deal, though, is not doing the deal with the player. It's the club. That's going to be the issue with this. But interesting that we're in that position with Carlos Baleba. Ben Jacobs also said a belief amongst sources is that come next summer still, potentially in this financial year, the likes of Bruno Fernandes could depart, Saudi Arabia are still keen, and Casemiro's wage could also come off the books. Now, you in the comments, I've said this a few times as well, is there something going on with Bruno where we've got some sort of pre-agreement, or we've asked him to stay for one more year and then he can get his big money move, and go off into the sunset and, bask in all the glory that goes with the Saudi Arabia and the generational wealth that will come with that as well. And we're pre-spending the Bruno Fernandes money now, because if you imagine, one of the reasons we're trying to get Baleba done now is because the competition for him next year would be a lot higher. In which case, that's just gonna inflate his value. So, there's going to be a bidding war, and his price is likely going to go up. And it's an expensive player anyway. But then imagine if Brighton know that we've got £100 million or whatever it is for Bruno Fernandes as well, they're just going to put the price up even higher as well. So it would make sense from that regard. But again, we don't know that for definite. That's just a theory. But if Ben Jacobs is saying it as well, then maybe there is some truth in that as well. And then Casemiro's wage is coming off the boat. Obviously, he's in the last year of his contract. Jadon Sancho's definitely going to be gone, regardless of what happens with him this transfer window as well. So it does maybe give us a little bit of wiggle room as well. But that's I found really interesting from Ben Jacobs. And then he also said that at the moment, Ruben is telling his owners and Jason Wilcox, and Christopher Vivell, go and bid now, show a sign of ambition, get me a ball winner, and find me an athlete in the middle of the park. So I'm just going to pause there. That I like that from Ruben Amorim, saying that, putting not necessarily pressure, but saying, look, let's be ambitious, let's just go for it. But interestingly as well, get me a ball winner and an athlete in the middle of the park. So if we don't get a midfielder this summer, right, and then we go into next season and we're playing Casemiro and Bruno, and, our midfield's open and we've got no legs and we're all moaning about it after games, I don't think the finger of blame should be pointed then at the manager, because Ruben Amorim has told the club what he needs. He said, look, I've got a problem in midfield. I want someone that can win the ball and there's an athlete. It's down then to the club to go and find that player, whether it's Baleba. Obviously, they've done all the data, and, he is a player that I think, why would you not want to go for Carlos Baleba, one of the best around in the Premier League in that position? But then could we get somebody else if we don't get him as well, like of that, caliber or with those attributes? So we need to be wary of that this season as well, because it's not Amorim. Amorim knows there's a problem there. He's trying to fix it, and he's doing all he can, because it's not him that goes out and does transfers. He just says to the board, look, I need this. And then it's down to the board and the club and the scouts and Christopher Vivell and Jason Wilcox, all those people to go out and find a fix for that problem. And then Ben Jacobs also went on to say, despite Brighton's position, he is not for sale. United are still prepared to try for Baleba, and if they don't succeed, they will line him up and do the legwork ahead of next year. So again, that's really interesting from Ben Jacobs, that maybe even if we don't get a deal done this summer, can we do some sort of pre-arrangement or pre-agreement with the player, pre-contract, stuff like that as well, or a pre-agreement with Brighton maybe to do a deal next summer as well, and still get us ahead of the game, because one of the reasons we're trying to get this deal done now is to fight off the competition. So even if we don't get him this summer, can we do something where we can fight off that competition next summer, which would be not a bad shout. But I want him. So so hopefully we can get him, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Then we had Manchester United are prepared to blow the budget to sign Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba and are ready to deal with the consequences down the line. United are advancing their interest in Baleba and preparing an initial proposal for the Brighton midfielder. So that's interesting. Prepared to blow the budget, and this might make more sense as we go through the video today. Conversations have taken place this week to figure out what it might take to get a deal done, with sources indicating that United are gathering a clear picture of the numbers involved. Suggestions in some reports have been that the midfielder will command a fee of £100 million and above, while there has been a strong belief around United that sales will ultimately be required to fund the level of business they want to do this summer. There is also a feeling that they might have the capacity to move for Baleba regardless. Executives are aware that such a transfer would blow the budget, but there is a growing temptation to press ahead and manage the financial implications later. So that came from Dean Jones, suggesting that, look, we know this deal is going to be expensive. It's probably going to blow our transfer budget for this window. We might still need sales in order to pay it back, but they're prepared to do it. They're prepared to take that risk, even if we sell someone, because we could sell someone in January if we needed to. If we were, off on PSR, we could look to do other things. We've still got, we still need a shirt sponsor for the training kit as well. So, could we just spend the money now, do little things like that between next year to stay compliant with PSR as well, which is really interesting. And again, I'll reference back to this story later on in the video because it might make a bit more sense as well. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. David Ornstein, though, said a number 6 is absolutely essential in their mind, and at the top of that list is Carlos Baleba, and Ruben Amorim is said to be a big fan. Manchester United are exploring the situation, and conversations have been held with Brighton via intermediaries to try and ascertain a price. That hasn't happened so far. So David Ornstein saying absolutely essential for Ruben Amorim that we get a number 6, and obviously the top of that top list is Carlos Baleba. He's the one that we're all in for. Be interesting to see where we pivot if the deal doesn't get done, because I don't think we could just not ignore the midfield for a year and go for Carlos. I do think we need somebody in there, because I don't like the combination of midfielders that we've got, because they all have deficiencies. So I do think it is I agree with David Ornstein and the club saying it's essential we get a midfielder in this summer. So it'll be interesting to see who we pivot to if we don't get Baleba, but let's hope we do get Baleba, because I'm still getting giddy around the situation. And then also he said there is expected to be a fierce battle for Baleba next summer or in the future, with some really big guns coming in for him. So perhaps United thought, why not try to get ahead of that? And he was saying, look, maybe they've just thought, well, to win the race, you've got to be in the race. So let's roll the dice and have a pop and see what can be possible. And you can't blame the club for doing that as well. Whether it's doable or not, we'll obviously find out in the next few days and weeks. And then he also said that many people on both sides don't see this move happening, but you've got to be in it to win it. There's no harm in knocking at the door and asking the question, and that's what United are doing. If a price comes back that is too high, I presume it doesn't go further. If it's potentially achievable, maybe they continue to explore it. So remember, the briefings are that we're at that stage now where we might, give a little tap on Brighton's door and say, how's about that Baleba then, fella? £80 million, and then do a cheeky initial offer. But apparently Brighton are not the club that will entertain offers if they're not close to the valuation that they want for their player as well. So that's why this is a bit of a game of chess. We're trying to understand what is the figure that Brighton would accept, so we can go close to that with our initial bid and start the conversations. Because if they're wanting 120 and we come in with a £60 million plus 20 in add-ons deal, they might just slam the door in our face, and then we're like, bugger. So that's what I think is happening at the moment. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. And then Fabrizio Romano last night said that contacts continue for Carlos Baleba. Today, Man United spoke again to the agents of the player. They're prepared to try to understand what Brighton wants to do. I expect Manchester United to try this week to understand the situation directly with Brighton. So either way, we'll know this week. Potentially we'll know whether it's been rejected, whether United have walked away, or however it gets narrated in the media, or if there's still, murmurings and still conversations going on as well, then maybe there's a chance that this deal could be done. But really interested. So essentially, that's what I said at the start. They're non-updates, but I found them really interesting, especially from Ben Jacobs saying, look, potentially, maybe we are spending the Bruno Fernandes money now, or that's one of the ways we can recoup the money to do it. Remember yesterday's video, there was talk from Laurie Whitwell about a revolving line of credit, so we could put it on the credit card and then pay it off when we get the sales, like with Garnacho, or, kit sponsor something in January if we need to as well. And they're prepared to do it. They just want to understand the price and how much is actually going to cost before they dive in and start making like official bids and stuff as well. But that's really interesting. But give us your thoughts and feelings on the Carlos Baleba stories in the comments below. Now, the other position, so David Ornstein did say in his clip that the two areas that United are looking to strengthen is a goalkeeper and a six. So with loads of news regarding the goalkeeper. I don't think most of you are going to like the situation, though. So firstly, Fabrizio Romano said that Manchester United made some calls last week to understand the situation of Donnarumma. So Man United are informed about what's going on between Donnarumma and PSG. Man United didn't activate the deal for Donnarumma, but let's see what's going to happen. Then we've had Nave Sol saying that news that Gianluigi Donnarumma has been left out of Paris Saint-Germain's squad for their Super Cup clash with Tottenham Hotspur this week caused a flurry of excitement among Manchester United fans. Donnarumma is not being actively pursued, and that goalkeeper is not a priority position for the summer. Now, he was the first journalist that came out and suggested that actually it's not a priority for the summer and that we're not actively pursuing Donnarumma. But Romano said we've had a conversation, so maybe we have just made an inquiry and a call and done some due diligence, but we're not pursuing it any further than that. And then we've had a flurry of activity. Ben Jacobs, Manchester United are not in for Donnarumma despite links. Sam C, Donnarumma is not of interest to Manchester United. Simon Stone, strong pushback from Old Trafford against link for Donnarumma. Goalkeeper is not a priority for Manchester United. That is a club brief when you get so many journalists in the quick succession, I think, anyway, coming out with the same story, saying we're not in for Donnarumma, but importantly as well, or interestingly, not seen as a priority. David Ornstein said a goalkeeper would depend on Andre Onana leaving, and there's no sign of that happening at the moment. So if that doesn't happen, I can't see a reputable goalkeeper arriving, but it is on the recruitment agenda, whether it be now or in the future. So I'm wondering whether, because we're about to blow a massive amount of money on Carlos Baleba, have they then thought, well, because we maybe then need to sell a goalkeeper, and because we can't sell Onana, as David Ornstein says there, not going to happen. There's no real interest in Bayern neither. We can't get the money in, so are we now pushing the goalkeeper in the future and maybe going for one next summer? Unless we could do like a loan deal or a cheap loan or something like that might be plausible. But I don't think Donnarumma's going to go anywhere on loan with all the fallout that's happened there. But yeah, apparently not seen now as a priority. And Naveso also said that a plan A for United this week is to have Andre Onana start against Arsenal, and insiders have been full of praise for how hard the Cameroonian has worked to come back ahead of schedule after suffering a hamstring injury during the first week of pre-season training. Ruben Amorim is understood to be more than comfortable with starting and finishing the season with Andre Onana in goal. So a bit of a blow for those that want a goalkeeper, myself included. I do want a goalkeeper, but it seems like, reading between the lines, United are prioritising Baleba, and they want the money that potentially we would have to spend on a goalkeeper go towards that deal, because it's going to be expensive. And it's effectively, if you go back to the report that I was saying earlier, if we're going to blow our budget on Baleba, then we obviously don't have the funds then to go for a goalkeeper unless someone's sold, and then we do get that money in, but no one's buying our goalkeepers. That's always been the issue in my head around the goalkeeper is we need to sell somebody to bring in a goalkeeper in that position, and nobody's buying our players. Nobody's interested in Onana. Nobody's interested in Bayern. There's no links to them going anywhere. So it looks like we are where we are, and it's going to be Onana in net for next season as well. Give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments. I'm worried by that. Because I was on X last night and it does what it does. Someone was putting like highlights of all Andre Onana's mistakes last season, and then when you watch them again, you're like, oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about some of those and I'd erased them from my memory. And then you're watching it again, and it filled me with a little bit of dread. But the only thing that, because I've said before, and I stick with it as well. In terms of my priority for this summer would have been the attack, midfield, and goalkeeper in that order. So front to back, because if you do get Carlos Baleba, and then you're limiting, like, our midfield will not be as open as what it is now, and I think you would be limiting the amount of chances that the opposition would get, and therefore in turn limiting the opportunity for Onana to do an Onana, in my opinion. But it's still a worry. I'd still want a goalkeeper, but the reality is, if we can't move a goalkeeper on, then you can't have 4 goalkeepers, and especially one Onana's on 150 grand a week. The Donnarumma deal as well. Apparently, he might be going to City if Edison goes to Turkey. And the deal, Romano was saying, 50 million euros, so 43 million pounds, and he wants still around 250 grand a week as well. That's way too much money for United for a goalkeeper when you've got Onana. If we'd sold Onana, then it maybe would give us some wiggle room. But even then, I don't think we would do it on those wages. I don't think we'd want to pay that. So Senny Lamens would be the one that's probably more of a viable option. But again, we'll wait and see how it all plays out. But give us your shouts on that in the comments below. Now let's go through the rest of the news. So Manchester United have kept Bayern Munich defender Dayot Upamecano on their radar as they look to bolster their defence in the summer window. United have included the 26-year-old on their list of priorities as his contract is set to expire next summer. Man United is making life difficult for Bayern. On top of it, Upamecano's agent, Moussa Sissoko, has offered his client to Premier League clubs, including the Red Devils. Now, that came from Christian Falk. Christian Falk's normally quite good when it comes specifically to Bayern Munich news. However, I read that and instantly thought agent talk, because he's out of contract in a year, so he's got a year left on his contract. Let's link Manchester United with the player, and then at the end it says he's offered his client to Premier League clubs. So clearly his agent is going around getting contract offers from other teams as a way to then go back to Bayern Munich and say, yeah, this is what we've been offered from other clubs. What are you going to do about it? Otherwise, we're going to walk out for free next summer, put them under pressure to either give him a new contract with better payment terms, or line up a deal for potentially him to go for a free, or maybe force the club to look to sell him. I mean, Upamecano, what do we think? Give us your shouts on that in the comments below. The other thing I would say about it is, we're not interested in a centre-half. If we've just gone through the news there regarding we're turning away a goalkeeper or not going to be looking at a goalkeeper, I don't think we would be interested in a centre-half as well, unless an opportunity arrives, unless we get a bid for, like, Luke Shaw. Someone comes in at the end of the transfer window, offers us money for him, and we sell him, and then we use that money. Maybe Upamecano becomes an option, but that's an example. I'm not saying that that's exactly, or someone comes in and bids for, Delit, and we sell him and whatever, then maybe there would be an opportunity to do that. I could see that potentially as well. But it did feel a little bit agent clickbait to me personally. But we'll wait and see how it plays out. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, this was really interesting from regarding Antony. So this came from a Spanish reporter that's close to Real Betis, saying that Manchester United are demanding that Antony accept one of the transfer offers that he has this week, with a threat of leaving him on the sideline until January. Man United do not want Antony to hold out until the end of the window in his push to move to Betis. United are aware of Betis' strategy and are looking to thwart that by pressuring Antony to make a decision now. And I like that from United, giving him a bit of an ultimatum to say, look, we want you to accept one of these offers or accept this offer. Otherwise, you're not going to play, and then we'll look at your situation again in January. It's a World Cup year. He's just got back in the Brazil squad as well with Ancelotti. I think that might work, but it's still down to the player. It is entirely still down to the player to accept these deals and accept the offers that may be on the table, or get Betis to fricking do something other than just waiting around, because they don't even want to pay some of his salary now. It's ridiculous, the situation here. But I think United are doing what they can, putting him under pressure to say, look, we're not accepting this loan deal. And I hope they stick with it as well, because, going back to the budget story and the Baleba news and stuff, we don't have to do anything now. We could do something in January still and just piss them off and just say, look, we are happy to keep you. So, whatever, you'll not even be in the squad. I can't see him even making the bench in games, although, that would depend on injuries and stuff like that as well. But I like the United's approach by that. These players are dragging their heels, and it's really, really infuriating. Like, I don't understand why these players don't want to be playing football, and I don't understand why they're waiting for clubs that clearly don't want them that desperately neither as well. Real Betis were desperate for Antony. Why have they not bid for him and got him in pre-season, ready to go for the start of the season, instead of just waiting to try and get some bullshit loan where they're only going to have him for a year and then next year they're in the same position anyway? Like, what an absolute waste. Like, as a player, me personally, I'd be like, well, they clearly don't fancy me then. And it's the same with some of the other players as well. But it's ridiculous, the whole exit news. Like, I can't believe it's been this long and they're still fannying around. But it's infuriating. And then Rudy Galletti said that Real Betis are in regular contact with Man United over Antony and pushing to get a deal done. The Brazil winger has reduced his wage demands to help him move, with next week likely to be decisive. So again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens regarding this situation. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, this was really interesting. So AC Milan's former manager, Arrigo Sacchi, on Hojlund said, first of all, we are not talking about Van Basten, nor one of the best centre-forwards in Europe right now. He's a decent player, nothing more. I don't understand his decision. If AC Milan calls you, you should pack your bags and get on the first plane to Malpasina. AC Milan is a legendary name in the world of football. I would take every player who is signed for a tour of the trophy room so they can fully understand where they ended up. So that was brutal, I felt, from AC Milan's former manager saying, look, he's not Van Basten, he's a decent player, and effectively saying, like, I don't understand why you would turn down AC Milan, which is interesting for two things, because I think that's a valid point. AC Milan are a big club, although I would question, as a United fan, being completely biased, whether moving to United and Milan is a step sideways at best, maybe. I don't know. I think anywhere you go from United is a step down, in my opinion, but that's because I'm a United fan. I could see the point of he was saying, like, he's going from Aston Villa or Everton or somewhere to AC Milan, no disrespect to them, but that would maybe be, or like Fulham, do you know what I mean, somewhere like that. Then yes, I could understand his point of view. But when you leave in Manchester United, I think it's slightly different, in my biased opinion. But interestingly, is he suggesting there that he's rejected the offer to AC Milan? Because the Gazzetta in Italy are saying that Hojlund is convinced that he can play his chances at Manchester United despite the competition. He wants to redeem himself after 2 years. Milan's Aguili Tare flew to Manchester to get the yes from Hojlund, but he won't wait forever. If Hojlund does not give the green light in maximum of a week's time, then Milan will move to other targets. So the Gazzetta in Italy suggesting that maybe Hojlund's still dragging his heels and not taking the hint, and is wanting to stay and fight for his place, even though he's been told now by the club, you're not really going to play and we'd like you to find a move. And as he rejected the offer to AC Milan, and that's why the former manager's saying, basically, how dare he? He's not even that good. Like, why would he turn down coming to AC Milan? And then the Gazette are also saying that, they're confirming that we've had the conversations, but he's still not given the green light as well. So we'll have to see how all that plays out, because Laurie Whitwell has been saying that there might be other teams as well. Newcastle, West Ham, I think they're another one. Obviously, RB Leipzig, although I think they've already signed a replacement for Sesko already. So there might be other clubs more interested. So we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out and see what happens with that situation. And then finally, I thought this was a very good summary of the situation regarding Alejandro Garnacho. Now, this came from Simon Jordan on TalkSport, who had the following to say: I think he's a little runt that should be drop-kicked out of Manchester United at the first available opportunity for decent amount of money, because he doesn't understand which football club he's playing for. I am not interested in his opinions about who didn't support him, who didn't clap him when he scored a goal, or which football club he can wear to appreciate Rashford's contribution. I am interested in a player that plays for arguably the biggest club in English football and respects that opportunity, and he doesn't. And I thought that was a good summary of the whole Garnacho situation. So hat tip to Simon Jordan regarding that as well. But the talk around Garnacho is personal terms are now agreed and done. I think with Chelsea, maybe we are in conversations with Chelsea around it, and we're just waiting for them to make a bid, and then we'll see how much money they offer initially, and then we'll wait and see how that plays out as well. But it does feel like there might be finally a bit of movement on an exit, and it might be Garnacho more than the others. As well, but we'll wait and see how all that plays out. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.